Well, good evening, everyone. This is John Craig,
And this is Sandy.
and we are live here on LambTube in Walking in Spirit and Truth. And it is good to see you this evening, if we could see you.
It wouldn't that be cool if we're making progression this way now from just audio to now audio and visual, then maybe someday.
Maybe
very soon.
someday. And well, I mean, after all, the big media companies that actually put out these programs, they can see us through our own lenses. It's true. It's true. It's not conspiracy. It's true. They can turn on our camera anytime they want.
That's why you put tape over your camera.
Is that why you have tape on your camera?
Well, yeah, and that's why we have a separate camera, not the one from the computer that we're looking at right now.
Right. So this is the 11th of December on this Tuesday evening at 8 o'clock Central Time. And we are going to continue to pursue the conversation we've been having. But as we get going this evening, by the way, did we introduce ourselves?
I don't know.
I don't know. We just started talking.
I think you know who we are. I'm Sandy.
And I'm John. And it's good. Again, it's good to be with you all
tonight. I think you said that 3 times.
Well, I probably did. I tend to repeat myself quite a bit.
What was that?
What was that? Is that a sign of getting older?
I'm not saying a word.
A sign of aging. I don't know.
It's a bad confession, whatever it is.
I don't know. Got to stay on track here. Well, before we get into the message, I just wanted to give everybody some updates of what's going on in current events. And I keep sending these articles to Sandy, and
I can't keep up.
There is so much happening in the news.
In fact, tonight is going to be informative. Whatever you say is going to be informative to me, because Anyway.
Well, and we're just going to highlight just some of the things that are happening, because I know not everybody has the opportunity to peruse the headlines and keep up with things, because life is really busy.
Do you just peruse, or do you do a little investigation yourself?
I do a little bit of investigation myself, actually. Okay. I look for multiple sources.
I don't know that people just want perusers. They could go peruse themselves.
Yeah, exactly. So, and when I'm looking at something, I'm looking for multiple sources so that there's at least 1 or 2 witnesses to these things that are happening out there. And so just give you some updates of what's happening. Israel, of course, is in the news, and it's always seems to be in the news. And one of the things that Israel is watching for right now is what's happening on their northern border. You know, a lot of the conversation that we've had in the past of what's happening on the Gaza border, they're on the southern part of Israel. Well, now they're really paying attention to the northern border with Lebanon. And we know we've been looking at things happening in Syria. Well, what's happening in Lebanon is that there is a big concern in Israel of the Hezbollah making tunnels under the border in order to come in and send their troops in and a northern invasion.
Haven't they been making tunnels, though, for a long time?
Well, Hamas has been making tunnels for a long time. That's what's usually in the news along that southern border with Gaza. But now this is on a total different side of the country. And so Israel's sending troops on that northern border, and they're looking for the tunnels. Because why? Because they're concerned that they'll sneak in. And if you know the northern border, unlike the southern border, it's full of mountains and woods and
beautiful
forests and trees. I mean, all of that sort of stuff. So it's really a beautiful part of the country. And it's very easy to come through and to hide and just appear. Well, one of the things that Monty Judah and Eddie Chumney were talking about in their news update this last week was how part of what they're concerned of the invasion of the North would be to send in the troops quickly in order to get into the Israeli villages and towns to mix among the population, because then it's more difficult, because now you've got innocent civilians that are there and it's more difficult to drive them out. So what they were talking about is how Israel has an evacuation plan that as soon as they get an inkling that there is an invasion, they're going to withdraw the people from those cities so that the people will not be subject to being used as human shields. So that's what's happening on the northern border. That's what's happening in Israel. Israel has been sending flights up over that Lebanese Israel border. And because Israel is sending troops to the border, Lebanon is now, and Hezbollah is sending troops to the southern border. So it looks like there's going to be a standoff. And of all the different things, the Lebanese army wants to have the UN with their observers to come in there and to watch, make sure everything remains kosher. Well, if you want to know what's happening with the UN and their observers, whenever they see things happening with the Lebanese army, with the Hezbollah, and their movement of troops and armaments and that sort of thing to the southern border, you know what they do?
Turn a blind eye.
They do. And they hide. And they say, we see nothing.
I see nothing.
Yeah. So,
oh, who were you trying to be, Schultz?
Schultz, I see nothing.
No, did he too go up in the air when
Nothing.
he said that?
I don't know. He said it.
No,
it's been a while since
I think the colonel is the one that did that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Hogan's Heroes.
That's been a while.
Been a long time. So that's what's happening in Israel. But Israel's staying out of Syria right now because of the S-300 system that they are still looking for ways to defeat. So that is just always it's one of those things that anything could go at any point in time in Israel. And one of the concerns as well is that with the buildup of troops on that northern border, is that there's a fear that war may break out before, and I'll use this, the before Christmas time.
And who says that?
And that is on this, and this is on the latest report. This was reported by the Hal Turner radio show. So HalTurnerRadioShow.com.
And what are some details on that?
And regarding the war, that's just the concern.
No, his where he comes up with that.
I cannot tell you that. It's just sources are telling him. So he's got a lot of connections, and the reason why
you might reiterate who Hal Turner is.
Yeah, Hal Turner is. He was formerly on the Joint Terrorism Task Force with the FBI. So he has lots of contacts in the different intelligence groups between military and CIA and the foreign intelligence services. And he's got a lot of friends. So he gets a lot of information that he can back up when he gets some information from the media. He digs a little bit further to see if he can get a little bit of additional intel from that. So what do? We watch and we see. Now, the other side of things that's going on is what's happening in Europe, and more specifically with the Ukraine. And we have seen in the last couple weeks where the Ukrainians sent in a ship without permission into Russian waters, there where their bridge is across from Crimea to the Russian mainland, and in complete violation, check in with the port and let them know what's going on. And so there was attack. The Russians attacked. They refused to stop. They took those sailors hostage. Ukraine sent 3 more boats in. Those were captured by the Russians. They were taken hostage. And so there's been an escalation of events over there in the Ukraine. Well, there are some more things that are taking place in the Ukraine. Well, one of the things is that Ukraine terminates the treaty of friendship with Russia, which is very significant because the Ukrainian government was a few years back during the Obama administration was deposed. They were overthrown. The Obama administration put in a puppet government in the Ukraine, which has Nazi ties. They don't like Eastern Ukraine because they are predominantly of Russian origin. Well, they're building up an incident over there. Because of that incident, they put the Ukraine under martial law, at least the Eastern Ukraine under martial law, and they're doing that. And it seems like it's leading up to, actually, for the full country is under martial law.
But haven't you said right now, if you look at it, Russia is the good guy here and Ukraine's the bad guy?
Well, because Ukraine is instigating, and Ukraine is moving their military forces over to Eastern Ukraine, and there has been a warning that's gone out to Ukraine. And I'm trying to get down to that part of the article. There's been multiple articles I'm actually threading together on this, and this has to do with that the intel is that the Ukraine government is planning a false flag attack in Mariupol within 72 hours. Now, this report came out yesterday. And so what is a false flag attack? Well, it looks like that the security forces of the Ukraine are wanting to stage a false flag terrorist attack which they can say they were attacked by the militia of those eastern provinces. We're right within the middle of that 72-hour window, and they are on high alert. The eastern Ukrainians they're on high alert. They're looking for some type of attack from the Ukrainian army, military, security forces. In addition to this, the Ukrainian military has moved in heavy armaments over into that area, as well as NATO has moved in armament, including military vehicles from Slovakia. So just Ukraine, and of course that butts up right up against the Russia border. Russia has moved in a number of tanks and heavy armament as well, and they are on high alert to the upcoming possible events. This is a pretty serious thing because part of the Mariupol area is off the Sea of Azov, and that is where the bridge connects the mainland with Crimea, and that Dead Sea, or the Black Sea, I'm sorry, is part of that disputed area. They want control of that southeastern province. They want to take it away from the Russians. Now, another report that's come out is that those people that live in that area are very much concerned of ethnic cleansing by the Ukrainian government.
Really don't take care of their people, that she knows of a situation personally. So
yeah, and one of the it says the Azov regiments and the 36th Marine Brigade will be tasked with cleaning of the territory to remove all unwanted elements contesting Ukrainian occupation. So there you have that. Now, one of the comments that I read in that article, and this was posted by Reginald Fisher, he said, U.S. NATO are challenging Russia in Ukraine and Venezuela. U.S. NATO challenging Russia and Iran in Syria. U.S. is challenging Russia and China in North Korea. U.S. is challenging China and Taiwan in South China Sea. And then he makes a comment, any wagers as to which one pops off first? And of course, we also have a pipeline that Russia is building from Russia across down through the Baltic Sea that's going to come over to Germany to feed Europe with natural gas, because the pipeline through Ukraine is being cut off. And the United States has said that we're not going to allow that, and they want to cut that off. They want to cut Russia off from any type of trade.
Under what grounds does the U.S. not want to allow it?
They believe that Russia is an enemy. And so, therefore, why is Europe, who is part of NATO, trading with the enemy? And they want to blockade Russia and sanction Russia to prevent them from using the European ports for any type of trade or business, as well as cut off the pipeline. So my question is, why is it that the United States, do they seem to be the aggressor in terms of trying to cut off Russia from all of these elements? And now, in the midst of this, Russia has moved two of their high altitude, but their long-range bombers over to Venezuela. So now they are within 2,300 miles of Washington, D.C., down there in Venezuela, with bombers that are equipped to carry nuclear warheads, whether they're missiles or bombs. They are equipped to carry those. They are making chess moves to bring stuff over into the Western Hemisphere, as the United States is making moves over in the Eastern hemisphere, we have all of these things that are taking place, and they're happening on our watch. And these are elements that well, and if you look at what's happening in Iran, Iran has been cut off from selling their oil. There's certain countries that are being allowed to buy oil right now based on some waivers, but with that, they're not allowed to trade in dollars, and so Iran has said, look, if these sanctions are not lifted for us to sell our oil, then we are going to cut off the oil flow from the Middle East, and with the threat of setting up mines there in the Persian Gulf to stop the tankers from leaving the Persian Gulf and bringing oil to Europe and the Western Hemisphere and other parts as well. They're threatening to do that. We have all of these different elements. Of course, Israel and the United States says, we're not going to allow that. You try that, we're going to take drastic actions. We're living in some very serious times right now where things are coming to a head. When you start cutting off and strangling the ability for a nation to survive, to bring down an economy of another nation through
what choice does the other nation have if somebody is interfering in somebody else's business?
These are all points of it's leading up to war, and those are the concerns that we have right now.
So what's on the home front? What's going on the home front? I mean, I know that we're about to go with another government shutdown, and Trump wants to make sure that the wall is funded. And of course, the Democrats, about to take over, will fight that the whole way. So he's trying to guarantee that it's done. And of course, Pelosi says, well, if you don't fund the government, because if without that, then it's all your fault. Well, no, it's your fault, Miss Nancy. So what's going on the home front?
Yeah. So, those are some things that it continues to build to a crescendo.
I know you've always said, though, that Trump had a plan. How is he going to take care of this with just a few days left?
Yeah. And that's what's happening. And I don't have the different hearings and proceedings that are going to be taking place during the next 3 weeks, but several different proceedings are taking place. We've got Huber coming in, that was doing the investigation on the Clinton Foundation and the corruption that's going on within the DOJ and the FBI. And that report's supposed to be coming out very shortly, I believe on the 18th. They're also going to bring Comey back in, since he is lying and he's not saying anything from his last hearing. They're going to bring him back in for more interviews. They're going to be bringing in Loretta Lynch, the former Attorney General, to question her before Congress.
If they can't get them to speak, then what's the point?
Well, that's the point. They're putting everything on the record. But
that doesn't matter, because everything has to be done before December 31st.
Everything has to be done. So we're going to watch how these things play out. It's high drama in Washington right now. And
I'm just tired of the really bad guys winning.
The next thing that's taking place is that on January 1st, the executive order for the new military tribunal orders, those actually come into play, which where it was, I believe it was a year ago that President Trump signed those, and those are very directive to anybody that's involved in any type of sedition, any type of trafficking of individuals, all sorts of different corruptions. It is a pretty powerful reason to have military tribunals. So to bring people into the military courts instead of civil courts and the criminal courts in order to bring about convictions. Well, basically, it's for sedition and treason.
Hold that thought, because I don't know if people will change the definition of what that is. But Joe says, have you heard from the Prophecy Club? Someone was discussing that there will be over 60,000 that will be arrested, and she's not sure if it's true or not. But
yeah, I've been hearing that for a while. I did hear that from the Prophecy Club. I've heard it from some other sources about all these indictments. There are secret indictments or sealed indictments. that seems to be a disputed point. I think that's one of the things I'm looking at. Well, we'll wait and see on it. I do know that there's I do know that in the last 2 years, there's been a number of people in the high positions of the DOJ and the FBI that have either resigned, they've been fired, they've been turned, they've been flipped, they've gotten witness statements to show how the government was trying to do a quiet coup against Trump and against the American people that voted for President Trump.
Which is most of America except for the cities, some of the cities.
Right. And so there's been a lot going on in the background. It's not published because the mainstream media has been on the cover up. So, and they have been feeding off the negativity that nobody watches them anyway. I heard some stats of what the mainstream media only gets about 25% of public viewership.
I think those are wrong.
Or the public actually getting the news from it. Actually, I was on a report today from InfoWars. So where people are getting their news from, they're not getting it from the mainstream media, but that's what they continue to put out there. So it's kind of split.
See, I disagree because the left.
I'm just reporting to you.
The left gets their news from the liars that are on the main media sources.
Okay, so I'm just telling you what the polls are saying.
Then half the country still gets its news at least from those sources.
Well, I'm telling you that's what the polls are saying. When they were questioning people how they get their news, they're saying they're only about 25% is getting it. 25 to 30% is getting from mainstream media or news. The print news. Not too many get. Only the older people over 65 tend to get it from printed media. So the local newspapers and stuff. However, we do know something that George Soros has just recently come out that now not only does he want to shut down alternative media, but he wants to shut down local media, all your local news stations, that type of thing.
Will be completely
He wants to eliminate them so that it only news comes from
the liberal left.
New York City, where all the studios are.
New York City. Yeah.
Yeah. Get a rope.
Get a rope. Why do you keep saying that?
Oh, I say that because you know that
I don't like that.
That Pace commercial.
They do not say get a rope on the Pace commercial.
Yeah, they do. They on Pace, salsa.
They say
where is that salsa made? New York City. Get a rope.
I don't remember the last part. I just remember New York City.
Joe probably remembers.
She said Pace commercial, but I don't know if she remembers get the rope part.
Yeah, get a rope. That was like a real famous line.
Let's not say it anymore.
Get a rope. So there you go. That's some of the things that's happening. Those are some things that we're watching because any one of these things can actually be the element. Now, with things that are culminating in Washington, what a better time to divert the attention of America away from the problems of the United States by creating a war whether it's regional, but I believe any regional war can break out into a worldwide war very, very quickly, let alone on top of that, the crisis regarding the economy. And that's one thing as well that's been taking place is that because of the central banks and raising of interest rates, they are sabotaging Trump's economy, where they're raising the rates in order to destroy the economy, where under Obama, they kept having to reduce the rates just to keep the economy going.
Okay, somebody do something.
That's why I really...
Why can't someone do something to stop it?
I really believe that's one thing that President Trump is actually doing. How can
he do anything with the Democratic Congress?
I'm a Trump fan because he's got...
I am too.
He's still the president of the United States, and he's in control of the administration.
I like him because he's the only one that we've had that's willing to stand up and not go with the powers that be. Wow, we need somebody that's going to stand up and say, no, I'm not doing what you say.
But let's bring this a full circle around. Do you remember what happened 2.5 years ago in the summer of 2016? It was right during the heat of the elections and that type of thing, or leading up to the elections. Do you remember what happened in the White House?
Tell me, John.
And the Supreme Court. It was then that the United States Supreme Court said it was legal for homosexual marriage, and the White House put up their
Oh, yeah.
rainbow color lights,
Oh, yeah.
and that became a really big thing. New York City, many big cities started putting rainbow color night lights up on their buildings as they were celebrating the Supreme Court decision. I believe that it was then that the United States had really made the last move. This is my opinion in terms of turning away from God. And there was, some people have called bringing in President Trump has been God hearing the prayers of America to give us a little extra time. But I don't believe, but when we look at what's happened during the Trump administration with the migrant hordes that are coming out of the South, it's just like it's happening in Europe, it's happening here. These are the signs of the fall of nations who've turned their back on God, where the borders become porous, that illegal immigrants begin to flood into a nation, and nations begin to be collapsed because just the sheer weight of people looking for a welfare system to take care of them. And
not to mention the masses that already live here are looking for that dollar,
right,
that free dollar to sit on.
Well, and how many people that actually need it, at least temporarily, can't even get it because the funds are going elsewhere.
I can speak to this personally because I worked in that system for 10 years. That most of the people in the system are fraudulent, and those that desperately need it just for a short period, almost, if they get it, they get very little help, and if they can even get on it. But most of the system, most of those in the system are committing fraud, and I will say that as a person who worked there.
You worked, right. Now
and investigated and did that. Yeah.
Talking about the migrant hordes that are coming into Europe and into the United States, well, Free West Media reported that the UN will soon try to enforce open borders as a human right.
No. Oh my goodness, get out of the UN.
And so right now, today and tomorrow, down in Morocco, they are holding meetings to, actually, they've been working on this project for quite a while. Now they're having the ceremonial signing of this. Is
Nikki Haley going to sign it?
No, it's this global compact for migration is what it's called. And where it's simply saying that now the United Nations says that if you want to go to another nation, that nation, every nation will have an open border.
We
for
are
free
sovereign.
migration.
Your own nation is sovereign. They cannot dictate, and somebody needs to get some kahunas and do something about it.
Well, President Trump has kahunas, and he said absolutely.
I guess I shouldn't say that, should I?
Well,
it makes me angry.
He does have the intestinal fortitude to be able to stand up against that, and he said absolutely not. We will not participate. And Hungary, along with Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orban, also declared that they would not sign this global compact.
Well, but Russia, of course, isn't part, but they never would have if they were.
Well, they're part of the United Nations now. There are 190.
Not NATO. Okay.
There are 191 nations that said that they would sign this, and now many of those nations haven't even read it. Remember, Nancy Pelosi says we don't know anything about the health care until
just sign it.
Just
and
sign
then we'll
it.
read later.
Then we'll read it, and then we'll find out what's in it. Well,
what idiocy.
That is total stupidity.
But guess what? That's who we have in leadership. By that statement alone, Nancy Pelosi should be made to get out. I'm telling you, how stupid are the people that, I guess I shouldn't even say that either.
Okay,
the people they keep putting her in there. Oh my goodness.
Exactly. And to clarify this is that you can see the arrogance of those people that are in Congress that think that they believe that they have better answers than the people that put them there. And so this international agreement goes on and says that even illegal migrants can no longer be deported. In fact, it'll actually it'll be the end of the very notion of an illegal migrant. Illegal border crossings will no longer be considered a crime, since migration will be considered a human right. So, in other words, that you are no longer an illegal migrant or a migrant. You are just another citizen of the world, and you have every right to live and take advantage of
No,
wherever you move
no,
to. This is what's happening right now in our world. It seems like you said the word idiocy.
it is.
It is idiocy. It's when
I think that it's like no one was actually educated over the last 50 years.
there's an agenda that the when it comes to a lot of these people, they think about it. If you're in a nation that's overpopulated and you can't take care of your people, why not open your borders where you can let out some of that pressure and let those people go, and give those people an idea that living in a Western nation where it seems so prosperous would be
And they
ideal for
curse
them.
it. They curse the nation, bringing in their own flag, and then they're going to bring in their ideals of whatever poor ideals they may be. Some may be good, but they're going to bring those ideals to transport the poverty and that mentality into the nation that they're wanting help from, to change the nation into the nation that they just fled from.
Yeah. The draft took 18 months to finalize and was approved in July by 191 UN member nations.
Somebody needs to burn it.
And now, so this is actually just the formalization and the signing of the compact.
Okay, but the U.S. does not have a representative that's signing it, correct?
That's correct. That and Hungary at this point in
And
time.
Israel wouldn't.
Israel, it did
Israel
not
guards its borders.
Actually, Israel did not. They actually remained neutral on this compact.
Why would they do that? They are one of the biggest. They guard their borders so intently.
Yeah, Israel remained
Why would
neutral.
they remain neutral?
So
I'm telling you, that wasn't good either. Canada agreed to it.
yes. So these are very, very major, but think about the worldwide political implications of this. Is that in order to change a system, you have to create chaos. That's the whole goal. Create chaos in the system in order to completely cause society to collapse, in order to bring in a new world order. You have to tear everything down. You got to do everything you can to make it all fall apart, so that they can come in and rebuild it, and everybody's going to be clamoring.
Savior.
Everybody's going to be clamoring for a savior. They're going to be looking for somebody to do this. Now, put that on top of what I talked about on Let Us Reason Together yesterday morning, with the move to bring about SO2, which is sulfuric oxide, which is air pollution. It's the stuff that they were trying to get rid of in the 70s in all of our cities. They want to spray.
They are.
Right now, they're not doing SO2. They're doing other heavy metals in the skies, but they want to bring that in to cover the world, to dim the sunlight by 30% in order to prevent global warming. And it's like stratospheric environmental spraying or something like. I mean, it's some.
So they prevent crops from growing.
They cut out the sunlight.
They cut off the food supply, so there's no food. Of course, we know that in the Obamacare that it became illegal to even have your own gardens, so or water supply, et cetera, so that the only food, it's just like they want to give out food. And I don't not like Joseph, but yet like Joseph, that you go to one central place for your food and get the handout, but you've got to bow down and do what they say first.
Right. What they want to do is they want to contaminate
and destroy most of the population.
So yes, again, societal breakdown, so that they can bring the cultures around to a point to where they can bring in the answer, which is the one world government, that Luciferian government with the anti-Messiah leading it to, and destroy every vestige. There you go.
Vestige.
Yeah, everything that we've been grown to know which is part of our freedom.
I,
Now,
I
now let's put on top of that the technical side of things with 5G technology
which
that's
hurts
being
your
rolled out.
body.
In fact, Elon Musk and the private rockets that are going up, this last rocket of Elon Musk actually went up, and they deployed several satellites in low orbit that is going to be part of the 5G network. And 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 what's the 5G network about? Of course, we know the dangers of 5G. We've talked about that, but it is for global control. And so our cell phones, our computers, where everything in technology, where in fact they're even placing cameras in shop vacs now. They're making our refrigerators, dishwashers, televisions, the cameras. They've got computers that talk to the internet, what we have, what we don't have, and all of this stuff is data used for data mining, so that there is no longer any type of real privacy going on. And of course, in China, they're taking full control of everything, and with the social scoring and that, if you do not keep up with if you become negative in the government in any type of way or form, you lose social standing, and you'll lose your where you live. You won't be able to travel. You can't even buy food. You lose your job. You can't go to school. And you're put into an electronic gulag that really shuts you down unless you comply with the system. They're rolling that out in China right now. Google is a big part of that, and which is a huge move to where they're started in China. They can roll it out to every nation in the world because everyone is connected to the internet.
So we need to pray that our refrigerators, dishwashers, etc., don't break down, so we don't have to have a new one.
Yeah, right. We do. We need to do that. We don't want them communicating our if you have a Wi-Fi. Now, if you use your computer in your house and it's not Wi-Fi, then it can't communicate. Those things cannot communicate. And if you hardwire everything, you're going to be better off where they're not going to be able to listen as easily. And that's why, it kind of goes back to what we talked at the very beginning on both my computer, your computer, Sandy. We cover up our cameras, except for this one that we plug in for the show,
And then cover it up.
and then we cover it up.
Well, unhook it and cover it up.
Unhook it, yeah. And for everybody to take in consideration, even on your cell phones, if you use your cell phones for pictures, you think that
this is news,
that the picture that you're taking of your family, your friends, whatever it might be, is just for you and what you're looking at. Guess what? It's taking a picture of on both sides of the camera. So it's looking back at you and what's behind you and knowing where you're at and sending that metadata. And especially if you're connected to your location finder, it's sending all that metadata into a database. Especially if you Apple phone and Apple product users, guess what? China owns you. They own your phone, and they own the encryption keys. And I want to make them very serious about this. Consider your Apple phones to be a device for China. You think you've got passwords saved in your bank account and all of that? All of that information is open for China to be able to log into whatever account you have. And if there is a war between the United States and China, you could have your bank account emptied out. China can get it.
Well, I think
the United States owes trillions of dollars to China. Where do you think they're going to start looking for getting some of that money back? Apple has given, in order to get cheap labor to build their Apple products in China, they had to give them the encryption keys. And that is that every iPhone is connected,
or any device,
iPad, iPhone,
any Mac device,
any Apple product, your privacy is not your own. So you need to consider these things. If you think you have privacy and you want to keep your privacy, you need. Now, I use my phone for work, and I need to And actually, the other day, I need to cover up my camera. The other day, I was holding my thumb over the one side of the camera, but I've got to remember if I use that camera for work, it's tracking my every move. In fact, one article that I saw come out today is that they can track you going back, I don't know how far, but several months, years, whatever, based on the use of your phone and where you carried it, your smartphone. They can get you your exact location at any time to a matter of just yards of where you were.
Okay. Can we go back and just not use this? Use a camera first. I've told you that. Use the camera.
Use a regular camera.
Secondly, we used to survive without bringing our phones around with us.
We did.
I think we should do that again.
And
I mean, seriously.
And I'll put another spin on it. I mean, looking at the type of work that I do, being an independent adjuster, I'm not using a company's computer or phone or anything like that. I'm using my own phone and computer, and therefore that's how I get my work. That's how I find out if new work comes in while I'm in a different area, and I'm tied to that leash, and I'd like to change it, but we don't have our bag phones anymore, and they don't have coin operated telephones that you can go to your local convenience store and call in and see what's going on. That's what we used to do. We didn't have a phone, so we'd go to put it in a quarter, say, hey, what's my, so there you go. We are tied to it because everything's real time, and you've got to stay on top of things or somebody else will steal your business.
There's a way. We need to pray. I know Tova's got wisdom on all that. So Laura said to turn off the location finder on the phones, but that's not enough, is it?
I still believe that there's a way that it still tracks, and that's one way to kind of slow it down a little bit. And let me put in another side. I use the map program so I can find my locations, because that's really important.
You should call in.
Yeah,
we don't have
a way to call in.
Well, I think we do. We just don't know how to do it.
Yeah, we don't have that number. I don't have that number right now.
Because I know he's got some good info on him. I would love to hear him.
Right.
And Tova too, and Joe. So, hey, welcome. Well, now I'm thoroughly frustrated.
You asked me to bring you current events today.
I thought we said like 15 minutes.
Well, that's why I'm saying there's so many different things that are taking place in the headlines.
It's so frustrating.
And so this is kind of a summary of things that are going on. And needless to say, I mean, it's hard to keep up with it because it's happening so fast. Things are, I mean, just news is changing and our society is accelerating.
Yes, but that is why the people of Yah should make their voice known and still should be praying.
Yeah.
There are more for us than against us.
James does say this, the symbol of the apple says all. It's very true. I mean, have you ever wondered why this apple chose the apple to bite into that knowledge in the fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil? Because that's the apple is the symbol of that we've all come to know.
Yeah.
It's very important. I mean, symbols mean things, like the all-seeing eye.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
I'm not. I'm just.
Yeah, but isn't that
someone will get a clip of this and they'll go, "Oh, see? John and Sandy, see, they are of the New World Order." Oh.
That's why I didn't even want you to put your hand to your. Anyway,
man, you can't even have fun anymore because someone will use that and say, "See how bad these people are."
Let's talk about.
Really.
Let's talk about how bad people really are, because we discussed this briefly. In Australia, you can be arrested for hurting someone's feelings. Yeah. That's how bad it is now, guys. You hurt someone's feelings, and that is grounds for a arrest.
Well, and Joe and Laura here online, they actually say, yes, we need to wear our armor every day. And here's the thing. I've always said this, and I'm going to reiterate it here, is now more than ever. Before I used to say it, and people say, okay, well, that's still a long ways off. I said, you've got to learn to hear the voice of the Spirit. You've got to hear the voice of the Spirit. Because why? Because you may be driving down the road and the Ruach will speak to you and say, you need to take a left. You need to turn left and go this way to go home, or don't even go home, or go to this other place because it's not safe if you go that direction. We have to be able to hear the voice of the Spirit. I mean, think about what the full armor is. The full armor is really a picture of the priesthood,
The priestly warrior.
the priestly warrior. And you think about what the high priest wore. It's very important why the priestly garment is so detailed out in the Torah. And then you see the comparisons when you go over to Ephesians chapter 6, and you see why those are why it's detailed that way, because it is our armor. It's our way of, it's righteousness, it's to walk out our life with the Spirit of God so that we can hear him. You know, there's the anointing that we talk about, the blood on the ear and the blood on the thumb and the blood on the toe that comes. It's all part of the anointing of the high priest. All of that, it's so that our covenant walk is protected in everything that we do, that we are under the blood, we are part of a covenant. But if we live our lives compartmentalized, what happens? We don't get to live in the full benefit of the promises of God. And we need to understand that those promises are there for our protection as well.
Well, this is just another interesting factoid, is that James said that the first Apple computer sold for $666.
Talk about symbolism. What were they trying to tell us? And I'm going to say something else. Okay. Since we're all on this subject right now, and we still have a little bit of time left. And this is a new report that came out. This report was a study, and I think it was published in the New York Times, and it was I pulled it up before the show. I don't have it in front of me right now, so I'm just recalling some of these things. But it's published by the New York Times. There was another source that published it. Is that if your children are using an electronic device like a phone, an iPad, a tablet, computer for more than 2 hours a day, it affects their brain, and it affects their ability to learn. That they have found through studying out the brain of the children that any longer than that, it starts to diminish their IQ and their development. Now, talking about, and that's what jogged my memory of it, is what was the name of the guy that started Apple? Anyway, he would not allow his own children to use
The products.
the products because he understood what it would do to the brain. Because they did the studies, they checked it out. They knew that those flicker rates and those things of watching the screen does something to the brain to dumb people down so that they won't use their brain, so that they won't actually think. And now, if that's doing that for the development of our children and our children's brains, what's it doing to our brains? Because they said, in comparison, after a child has been using that for more than 2 hours, that's the limit, more than 2 hours a day, their brain begins to function like a person that's an elderly person, that they're going into where the brain function begins to diminish. So we need to understand, and I don't know if they're starting to compare it to Alzheimer's or something like that, but our cognitive abilities slow down, and we are not able to function to the fullest of our original design.
Laura says, listen to classical music to help refocus and reconnect the brain.
That's really good, Laura. I really like that. That's really true. And so besides the fluoride in the water, besides things like that, those things also numb the mind, numb the brain, and take away IQ. The screens, the televisions, you know, we like these big screen televisions and all of that. They're producing microwave radiation. I mean, all of these are in the studies, and here we have them in our homes, and we're allowing those to come in for a slow kill for our health. And it's just saying, let's let's be aware. Let's be aware that that the modernization and industrialization and the technology advances, they come with a price. And we need to understand that the flicker rates are designed to cause us not to want to engage with when we see uh, wrongs happening in our society because, well, we're numbed. We're numb to those things. Why do they want us numb? Why do they not want us to be activated to take a stand? Because they don't want resistance when they're polluting our air, when war is on the horizon, when there's injustice and corruption in our government, when everything they're doing will ultimately mean the slaughter of a great population of people in our nation and in the nations of the world. And ultimately, we've allowed it to happen. Someone never said no, or we were called a conspiracy theorist.
We can still say no.
And now is the time we need to say no. Now is the time that we need to be active. We need to tell our congressmen. And by the way, when we're talking about these things, our members of Congress and our senators are just as ignorant as we are. They don't know these things, and oftentimes they're signing on to legislation that allows these things without the knowledge of what it'll do to impact the population of the nation, even of their district. So they don't even know. So it's up to us to begin to educate even those that we vote into Congress and those that we don't vote into Congress.
Call your
we need to let them know.
congressman on all of it.
It's important that we stay actively involved, and even down to the local level.
I agreed.
And if you got kids in your local schools, don't let them take the books away.
It's too late.
Don't let them give the kids tablets where they're staring at tablets 7, 8, 10 hours a day.
John, that's too late. That's already happened.
Well, they need to reverse those things. Or it's time to pull your kids out of public school and start to homeschool. Find a way to get your kids, your grandkids out of public school and into some type of private organization that believes in the basics, because we don't need our kids to be dumbed down and numbed down and simply made into drones, essentially, to do what they've been told, not to think for themselves. We need to change that.
What they do is erase whatever's been there. So then the slate's numbed or dumbed down, and then they can put in them what they want. Yeah.
So
that's been a fun, happy program, John. Craig. Happy, joy.
I'm just saying
our Redeemer lives. Hallelujah.
This is a serious day and hour that we're living in, and if it's not for that, come Yeshua, come.
Yeshua, bo.
We have nothing to look forward to. We have to understand. But let me put it this way: we have a lot to look forward to if Yeshua is not coming. If we would all take action, and we can start on the local level, in our community levels, and begin to make our voices heard. Show up at the city councils and all of that. So, talk about life. There you go.
You can breathe now.
We can breathe?
No, you can. You did all the talking tonight.
Okay, so why don't you tell everybody about Life of Worship, where they can find us. That's why we need a worship. We need a worship.
We need an encounter night. That's for sure.
We do need an encounter night.
Well, everybody, we're glad that you joined us this evening for a news update this time around. And if you would like to know more about the ministry, you can go to www.lifeofworshipamarillo.org. If you would like to partner with us, click on the donate button on that same website and join with us. We're praying for partners just like you to join with us arm in arm and hand in hand. And if you would like us to come visit your congregation, your fellowship, let us know, whether it be John, myself, both of us, in whatever capacity. And we would love to do that. Also, drop us a line and let us know what you think. And you can do that at LOW@lifeofworshipamarillo.org. All that information is there on our website, and you get to know a little bit more about us if you go there. And come and tell your friends about us. Join us. We would love to hear from you.
That's right. So, well, on behalf of Lamb Radio and Walking in Spirit and Truth.
One more thing. If you're ever in the Amarillo area, we would love to have you at our services. Our times and things are on the website. But if you're coming through, hey, we have Bible studies throughout the week, tour studies and during the week. And we also have our services on Shabbat. And we would love for you to join us there.
That's
now
right.
You can do that.
Okay. On behalf of Lamb Tube, I said Lamb Radio, but it's Lamb Tube right now. This has been Walking in Spirit and Truth. I'm John Craig.
And this is Sandi.
And until next time, Shalom.
Shalom.